Hello, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm chairperson of the Committee of Adjustment. My name is Phil Pocock. The order of today's meeting will be under my direction. I'll introduce the staff that's here. We got Ian Rawlings at the back, Doreen Lester to my left. My far right is Bill Baker, and then Marcia Bachta to my immediate right. All items on the agenda must be acknowledged by me prior to any discussion, presentation, or decision. When I acknowledge you to speak, you can address me as chair. Please be advised that all proceedings and decisions of this committee are undertaken without bias or conflict of interest. Any conflict of interest for members of the committee will be declared at the beginning of the meeting or prior to the application being heard. All members of the audience wishing to speak will be able to do so when acknowledged by myself in accordance with the published agenda. Each person is allowed 5 minutes. When invited to speak, please approach the podium at the back of the room, turn the microphone on by pressing the button. Wait a second for the microphone to turn on, and the light will turn blue. We ask all in attendance to be respectful, only speak to the application at hand, and any topic that deviates from the application will be not considered or tolerated. Please note this meeting is live streamed to the town's YouTube page. Ian, you want to do the land acknowledgement?
Through you, Chair. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial.
Any declaration of conflict of interest? Not seeing any. Okay. Adoption of published agenda for the committee meeting February 19th. Motion by Doreen, seconded by Bill. All good. Yeah. Adoption of minutes from the January 21st, 2025. Motion by Doreen, seconded by Bill. All good. Yeah. All right. And report from administration. The application B3-25. Ian?
All righty, thank you, Chair. Our first application tonight is B0325 and A0325 for the property 7043 County Road 23, former Colchester North. The subject property is designated agriculture in the Town of Essex official plan and is zoned agricultural district 1.1 in the Town of Essex zoning bylaw. The subject property contains one single detached dwelling, and the rest of the property is used as an agricultural operation. The subject property does not contain any natural heritage features, items identified under the Ontario Heritage Act, and is not located in a floodplain development control area. The subject property is located within the Essex Conservation Authority's limit of regulated area. Next slide, please. So the applicants are proposing to sever a 0.45 hectare or 1.1 acre parcel from the existing 37 hectare agricultural lot to be added to the adjacent property identified as 7045 County Road 23. The retained agricultural lot is proposed to have an area of 36.5 hectares or around 91 acres. The receiving lands, 7045 County Road 23, share the same official plan designation and zoning district and currently contains a single unit dwelling and accessory structure. Next slide, please. So the properties 7043 and 7045 County Road 23 were the subject of a previous consent application for the creation of a surplus dwelling. This application received approval from the Committee of Adjustment on January 15th, 2019, and all conditions were satisfied within the applicable timeframe, and the lot was successfully created. The surplus severance application resulted in the creation of 7045 County Road 23. The lands that the severed lands within today's application will be merged with, or proposed to be merged with. Due to the previous severance, the applicant is unable to sever the existing dwelling located on the severed lands, being 7043 County Road 23, for the creation of a new lot, and this includes through items such as a surplus severance. This is due to Section 6.5B of the official plan, which prohibits the granting of a consent application resulting in two dwelling units on two separate lots when previously on a single lot. Therefore, the applicant is only able to merge the two separate dwelling units onto one lot at this time. I would like to note that as a result of the previous severance, the restrictive development layer was placed over 7043 County Road 23 to prevent the construction of new dwellings. And this restriction will remain over the retained land following today's severance. Next slide, please. So here we just have an image of the severed land. So this is 7043 County Road 23. Next slide, please. And then here, just an image of the receiving lands. Next slide. Thank you. And then here, wanted to show the land between both 7045 and 7043. Sorry, getting my words mixed up there. And somewhere in the snow, would be the lot lines separating the two lands, which now they would be merged. Next slide, please. And then here, wanted to show the retained lands. So as you can see, they are completely used for agricultural purposes. And with it on the map highlighted with the red circle is the existing access to the farm. Next slide, please. So now for the policies that were considered for the consent application, the provincial planning statement and the County of Essex official plan are both satisfied as they permit lot adjustments in agricultural areas for minor legal or technical reasons, as long as no new lots are created. The Town of Essex official plan is satisfied as the severance does not result in a new residential lot. A development restriction is already placed on the property to ensure no new dwellings are constructed over the retained lands, and no orderly development pattern is identified. Existing access to the retained lands and the severed lands will be maintained as is, and all services will be located within the severed lands, and the retained land does not require any additional servicing or rerouting of existing services. Lastly, the severed lands and receiving lands will be required to merge under common ownership, and relief is required from the zoning bylaw to recognize the reduction in lot area for the retained lands. Otherwise, the retained and severed lands abide by the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. So as a result of the severance for the purpose of a lot addition, the retained parcel will be reduced from 37 hectares to 36.5 hectares. Relief is therefore required from section 13.1B2 of the zoning bylaw, which states the minimum lot area for lots within an agricultural district, or a 1.1 district, is 40 hectares or as existing. Right, so so concerning the policy for minor variance application, the 4 tests provided by the Planning Act and 2 tests provided by the official plan were prescribed, and the application satisfies this criteria. The official plan is satisfied as there will be no change in land use and the lots will be required to merge, so there's no creation of a new lot of any kind. The intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained as there's no fragmentation of farmland. A development restriction is already placed over the retained land due to a past application, and the retained land will encompass the entire agricultural operation. The proposal is minor and deemed appropriate as there is no impact to the agricultural operation and no impact to the local density or farming operation, and it supports the separation of these land uses. No impacts to traffic and parking are expected as the accesses to both parcels will remain, and there's no neighborhood character to maintain in this area and no visible change from the street level. Lastly, this is required to support a lot addition severance. Next slide, please. So the application was circulated to all internal and external agencies. The County of Essex stated that the existing access may remain and no new accesses fronting County Road 23 and County Road 18 will be permitted at the time. IRCA has expressed no objections, and no objections were received from any internal or other external departments, and no comments from the public were received up to this meeting. Okay, next slide, please. So the planning department is recommending approval with standard conditions for a lot addition, such as granting of the variance, the lands merge, survey, and the applicant has 2 years to fulfill all conditions. Alrighty, next slide, please. So a reminder for the committee, reminder for the committee, you can either approve the application with or without conditions. You can defer the application should you require additional information, and you can deny the application if, as long as you state the reasoning. Thank you.
Mr. Drouhard, do you have anything to add to the application? Okay, any questions from the committee? Motion,
Motion to approve with conditions as noted.
seconded by Bill. All approved, and there you go. Minor variance.
Motion.
Seconded by Bill. All good, and we're done. Next.
Thank you.
Next. All right, we'll go on to application B 425. 1 second.
Thank you, Chair. The next and last application tonight is B0425 for the property 21 Third Concession Road. The subject property is located in a primary settlement area, being Harrow, as identified by the County of Essex official plan. The subject property contains 7 structures with differing uses geared towards the industrial use, being items such as self-storage facilities, offices, detached garages, and accessory uses to the aforementioned. The subject property does not contain any natural heritage features, items identified under the Ontario Heritage Act, and is not located in a floodplain development control area. The subject property is also not located within the Essex Conservation Authority's limit of regulated area. And the applicants are proposing to sever a 2,771 square meter parcel from the existing 1.9 hectare commercial lot. The retained lot is proposed to have an area of 1.6 hectares and will contain all existing structures and accesses to the property. The applicant is proposing this consent for the creation of 1 highway commercial lot, and the severed parcel will remain vacant and will have frontage along, will be vacant at this time, and will have frontage along County Road 11 and 3rd Concession Road. Next slide, please. So, as I had mentioned, with this application, under the official plan, the subject property is split designated highway commercial on the west, being the pink, and industrial on the east, being the blue. The subject property is also split zoned commercial district 3.1 on the western portion of the property, which is the red, and is zoned manufacturing district 1.1 on the east, being the blue. In the town of Essex, the severed lot will be designated highway commercial and zoned commercial district 3.1 in its entirety. Next slide, please. So with it, this is the applicant's provided site plan detailing the location of all structures and identifying the severed lands at the top left or northwest, if you will. Next slide, please. So here we just have an image of the severed lands or the lands to be severed. With it, these lands are vacant. There's nothing located on them at the time. Next slide, please. And then here, just from another angle. And then with it, I wanted to show the area that the severed lands actually connects to the retained land. So with it, I kind of call it this pinch point. It's just this small little area between the 2 fences you can see in the images on the left. Next slide, please. And here we just have an image of the retained lands, just the closest structures to the lands to be severed. Next slide, please. Now, for the policies that were considered for the consent application, the provincial planning statement details that settlement areas should be the focus of growth and all development requires full municipal servicing, and that a range of suitable sites should be provided to support a wide range of employment types. The County of Essex official plan is satisfied as it prioritizes growth within settlement areas, primary settlement areas, and plans for a mix of lot sizes for varying employment uses and encourages these lots to be adjacent to or in close proximity to county roads. The Town of Essex official plan is satisfied as the development of the severed lot will be subject to site plan control, where items such as proper access and servicing will be addressed. Full municipal services will be provided to the severed lot, and the applicants has advised that all municipally provided and privately provided services pertaining to the retained lands do not utilize the severed lands. However, not all services have been identified on the site plan at this time, which was accompanied with the severance application. Therefore, a condition has been included requiring that the applicant identify the location of all municipally provided and privately provided services, and if any are located on the severed lands, that they be relocated, abandoned, or an easement be granted accordingly. Both the retained and severed parcels abide by the regulations within the zoning bylaw and do not require any relief at this time. Next slide, please. So the application was circulated to all internal and external agencies and property owners within 60 meters of the subject property. Both IRCA and the county have expressed no objections at the time. Excuse me. Infrastructure Services has advised that items identified in the registered site plan control agreement, which pertain to the retained lands only, have not been completed as detailed, such as the construction of the stormwater management pond and associated works. Infrastructure Services has requested that all items contained within the site plan control agreement be addressed as a condition of severance. This condition has not been imposed as the deficient items do not encompass the severed lands, and the planning department is able to use alternative methods to ensure items identified within the site plan control agreement are addressed accordingly in a manner which does not hinder the severance application. The applicants have also expressed that they plan to explore further development opportunities on the retained lands, which could require an amendment to the existing site plan and items such as that. However, a development proposal has not been provided at this time, and development of the retained lands falls outside the scope of the severance application. A separate condition has been included to address this item within items within site plan control and ensure their completion. Otherwise, no comments or objections were received from the public as of preparing the presentation and coming to this meeting. Next slide, please. So the planning department is recommending approval subject to the following conditions. Most of these are standard conditions for a severance, such as a new survey, draft transfers, confirmation of taxes, and the applicants have 2 years to complete all conditions. However, there are 2 unique conditions expressed here. The first detailing that the applicants locate all services to the subject property and reroute any services or apply for an easement if located on the severed lands. The second being that the applicant provide a deposit in the amount of $20,000 prior to the issuance of the consent certificate to be returned at the discretion of the chief building official. The reasoning for this condition is that the subject property currently has 2 open building permits that are conditional upon the completion of site plan control, dating back to approximately 2014 and 2016, respectively. And a site plan control agreement has been entered into, but the works detailed in the agreement were not completed at this time, such as the construction of items such as the stormwater management pond, as identified by Infrastructure Services. The planning department and building department are using the severance and the ability to place conditions on the approval of the severance to ensure that the applicant completes the required works for the construction of the two conditional structures without hindering the timelines for completing the conditions of the consent application. Hence the condition requiring the deposit to be returned at the discretion of the chief building official. The alternative to this condition would be to impose a separate condition ensuring the items within the site plan control agreement are completed prior to the issuance of the consent certificate. This would take a considerable amount of time and resources to complete, and the severed lands are not tied to the works required. Therefore, we did not feel it was appropriate to include that as a condition. The applicant has expressed that they are not in favor of this condition. However, it is the committee's discretion if they would like to include this condition, should they support the approval of the application. And the committee may also choose to support the application without the condition. However, the planning department is expressing support with all of the conditions listed. The planning department is also in favor of a deferral. If you would like us to sit down with the applicant, discuss this condition further, or search for an alternative. Next slide, please. And so with that information, the committee can approve the application with or without conditions. They can defer the application pending additional information, and they can deny the application, but they must state their reasoning. Thank you.
Mr. Pullard or Mr. Hammond, do you have anything to add to it? Not really? Okay. Anything from the committee? Go ahead there, Bill.
A few questions, if you'll permit me. So to the planning department, to you, Chair, you do suggest this severance, as it stands alone, has no bearing on the proposed development or any development that already occurred on the retained portion. Is that correct? Sure.
Through you, Chair, could you restate the question? Through you, Chair, because of the location of the severed lands, how they're, I would say northwest of the property, how they're connected, the completion of the works that's required in things like such as site plan control and future development of that property isn't quite tied to the severance application. However, a severance application or a planning act application, that's the time to fully review the property, see what's in compliance and what's not. And that's what brought these items to light. And this is the time, such as a severance application, where you can impose conditions, where you can require works to be completed that would have been deficient.
Why was it not the building department that would not negotiate or work with a site plan specifically for the water retention that was supposed to be done? Why would that not be independent of this severance? I'm still trying to understand why it has any bearing on the severance when in fact you suggest that the development proposal has not provided this time, and the development and the retained land falls outside the scope of this severance. And further to that, I'm finding that the monetary amount seems to be punitive to this severance as opposed to negotiating a site plan issue with regards to what needs to be done on the retained portion.
Through you, Mr. Chair. With this condition, how it's worded requires a deposit to be provided, and that deposit doesn't have to be returned until after the severance is completed. So it's at the discretion of the applicant to fully complete any works on the severed lands. So if they wanted to explore new development, construct a new stormwater management pond, all of those kind of items, it's not tied to the severance application. In terms of, it doesn't hinder the lands from being severed. However, that work would still be completed, site plan control would still be completed, and the property would be constructed properly. With it, if the separate condition was included, which would be a more standard condition of the works within the site plan control agreement be completed, which is construct the stormwater management pond as detailed in the site plan control agreement, that would require the applicant to physically go in, do that work, all within that 2-year time limit that a severance application permits. So we can't extend that time. So if the applicant wants to have a new development or explore new development for the site, this still ensures that that work is going to be completed one way or another through their site plan control agreement, whether it's the work that they plan to do back in, I believe it was 2014 when they originally entered that agreement, or if they wanted to amend their site plan control agreement and construct new work this would still allow them to do so and let them sever off the land at the same time.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarity, Mr. Rawlings, is the site plan agreement that's been approved and registered on title, is it for the lands that are being severed? Or is it for the lands that are, so is it for the commercial lands or is it for the manufacturing lands?
Chair, it's for the retained lands. So it doesn't encompass the severed lands.
Sorry, just another follow-up question. So the retained lands are currently built out. And so the site plan control that's on the property, has the stormwater management not been done for the storage buildings that are currently located on the land?
Through you, Chair, yes, that is correct. They have not been constructed.
One question that I need to ask. Also, with regards to the condition that the applicant confirms that the locations of the on-site services, and if located on the service lands, services be abandoned and relocated. This land, this property has been there for I don't know how many years, and would we not already have locates for services through that parcel of land?
Through you, Chair, we've had several discussions with infrastructure and with the building department about the location of services. So they're locates where their water is. And with it, we have no record that they are along the severed lands. However, we don't know exactly where they are elsewhere that the property abuts both the county road and the town road. So with it, we've asked that they identify them just to be sure that they're not cutting through the severed lands. And if they are, that they have to relocate them accordingly. So with it, this allows us to still find the services, but with it, we're confident that they wouldn't be along the severed lands or cutting through it. And we have some insurance in case they are.
Back to the back. Yeah, the podium and speak, no worry. Yeah, get.
I've lived on this, our family has owned this property for 88 years. I've lived on it. That was my childhood house that still stands. And I've owned it ever since my father passed away. So I know what's, you've asked. This is running on this property. And I know there isn't, but how do I prove it? For that many years. Okay. Finished. I didn't know we required the site plan control. RUD did on the but didn't water management. There's two buildings and there's a space in. Oh, okay. So today, be the same. Trucks coming in there. Nope. Oh, okay. Nobody ever bothered me about site plan control until this came up about 3 weeks ago. There was no problem, which I didn't know. Then this came up. So the town said to me, you've got to hire somebody. At their request or their suggestion, I hired Dan Boudreau to do me a site control plan. And I showed him where I wanted it, the other side of the ambulance, across from your place. I've got 20 feet, 15 to 20 feet between the ambulance and them. Their storm management is right on that side. Mine would be on this side. And I said to him, if I want to expand back in behind, let's design it so I can take it back further beyond the storage buildings. And if we ever want to design, I didn't develop, I didn't say we were going to, but I've got all kinds of stormwater management there. So that's what I'm waiting for, is Danny to get back. He texted us today. He's working on it. So, you know, it'll be done. So that's, you know, basically.
So then, it shouldn't be an issue then if it's a condition because the work's going to be done. That's what I'm saying though. If we make it a condition, it shouldn't be an issue then because you're doing the work anyway, correct?
If it's a condition on the 7th, not being granted tonight, I can tell you right now, I'm out the door. There'll be no 7th because we've had an offer. The only reason we're doing this.
You have to push the button, sorry.
The only reason we're doing this is because we had an offer on the property which blended in with what the town wants on the whole thing, that corner, and the house that sits there, which is there. This deal doesn't go, the bulldozer goes in the house. It'll just be, and it'll never be done with anything.
Sorry. Okay.
Through you, Chair, this condition that we've imposed requiring the deposit, that is in, instead of a condition requiring that the works within the site plan control agreement, the existing one, that would require the stormwater management facilities you had talked about between the two buildings. It's in lieu of that kind of condition. So it doesn't require you to put that works in the ground at this time.
But you're hindering me
Mhm.
because we got the offer
Mhm.
on the property. The only reason we're selling it is we got an offer in October. We started this process 1st of November. It's February the 19th. We're here. Okay? We give an extension on the offer. If this doesn't pass tonight, I don't care if you sever it, but because it's done. I won't sell it. I won't do anything with it.
Through you, the chair, to Mr. Pollard, are you at liberty to say what the proposal is with regards to the severed property? If you don't, that's okay.
Yes. One, the front, as far as I know, along Queen Street will be some type of residential because the zoning allows that. Pardon?
Residential.
Pardon? It would be.
Through you, Chair, I would have to double check the zoning for the residential to see if residential would be permitted and where.
I have
Yeah,
no idea.
yeah.
The main purpose. Where my house stands, that is also in the offer. That will be tore down and a medical facility will go in there. So both, I thought, well, this is what we need. Otherwise,
Question there, Bill?
Same question, man. You're just responding to my question.
Okay.
Through you. So, what we're suggesting, what we're saying, I mean, with regards to the conditions, if the committee can pass this tonight with or without the conditions. If the conditions are still there, does not stop you from the severance. It doesn't stop you.
No.
Okay. It doesn't stop.
My grandson.
Yeah, no, but what I'm trying to say is that if this is passed tonight, okay, with or without the condition, let's say you're still able to sever the property. Okay, and I'm having a difficult time through this to understand why we are making this punitive on the retained portion of the land against this severance.
Right.
All right, that's what I'm having a hard time to understand. Why we're making this punitive, this severance, which has no bearing, and it says here it's outside of our scope, has no bearing on this severance, but yet that site plan control is working with the building department on this currently right now.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we putting this condition on there? I don't understand. So I would, at an appropriate time, I would like to make a motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Is it, Mr. Rawlings, is the condition there because the property as a whole is considered non-compliant with the municipal policies?
Through you, Chair. Yes, that would be why that condition is there, is because the property is not complying with its registered site plan control agreement and its building permits at this time.
Go ahead. Before you get it, I just have one quick. Have you guys discussed can we get this kind of cleared up if we waited a month? If you guys can get this, stuff. Okay, oh, okay, go ahead there, Bill.
I would like to make a motion to pass the application without without the two conditions, without condition number 5 and without condition number 6. Okay, which suggests that the no deposit is required on this, because that, in my opinion, has to do with the retained portion and the development on that they're working on that portion. It has not to do with the severed or the severed portion, which we are application tonight, which to me would be a punitive for this. So I'm making a motion to remove those conditions, that we pass this, moving conditions 5 and 6.
Not seeing a seconder on that. Actually, can you read the conditions out for 5 and 6?
Number 5, location of services to be confirmed and rerouted if located over severed lands. And number 6, that the applicant provide a deposit in the amount of $20,000 prior to the issuance of the consent certificate to be returned at the discretion of the chief building official.
I'm okay with removing 6. I'm not okay with moving 5. Are you willing to modify your motion?
I would agree with that. So I'll be okay. Removing 6, which is the $20,000 deposit, as a condition.
Right.
Okay. So then number 5 is just to prove that there's no services on the land, basically.
Correct, which Dan's already kind of doing.
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not then. He's doing the site plan on the other.
Go ahead. Can you go to the back
Yeah.
there? Sorry.
Doing the site plan for the storage units only. Somebody come in and I've known 7 years myself. How long have you been there? Water department. They search their records. Aerials. There's never been any disturbance. They have no water. You see, you kept asking me, what about the storage units? They don't have services. We got no services because they're storage units. So there's impossible. The only one, the ambulance is there in this vacant lot.
Disappointing. Kind of. Overall, go ahead.
I just have one question for you, Mr. Rowling, through you, Mr. Chair. So does the municipality not have any other trigger to ensure that the stormwater management works for the retained parcel that the municipality is asking we hold a $20,000 deposit for to ensure that work is done and it's not a big mud pit? Do they have any other way to ensure that work? Do they have a stormwater management deposit that they can do the work and then put it on the taxes? Do they have anything like
So through you, Chair, not that I'm aware of. However, this would likely be handled through the building department, as they would be the ones to more appropriately enforce something like this. So they do still have the two conditional building permits at this time and the works that aren't completed within the site plan control agreement. So there could be other ways that they could enforce this, just not to my knowledge today. Thank you.
It is now? The amended motion?
That hasn't been seconded just yet, but we're getting there.
Approve the application with the removal of condition number 6.
Yeah, I'm okay to second it that way. So we'll have a vote. All in favor? All opposed? Brains opposed? Motion passed. With the one condition that you'll have to call the locates.
Thank you.
All right. And motion to adjourn. Bill?
We must we have to receive the presentation.
Oh,
That's okay.
I thought, that's where I got confused when I
Yeah.
saw that.
Receive the presentation.
Motion to receive the presentation. I don't understand that. Yeah. Yeah.
Be received. And this was noted on previous that we haven't been doing this, so this is why this was added. Yes,
Oh, okay.
that the clerk noticed that we had not been receiving, okay?
Motion by Bill, seconded by Doreen. Good. Okay, now motion to adjourn by Bill and Doreen. All good.